On August 13, 2020, Israel and the United Arab Emirates reached a landmark accord to establish full diplomatic ties in a deal announced by President Donald Trump. Israel agreed to halt its proposed annexation of the occupied West Bank in return for full Emirati recognition. So what do these flourishing ties between once bitter enemies really mean? I'm Ali Mustafa and this is UAE-Israeli Ties Decoded. What happens when Israeli Mossad agents assassinate a Palestinian leader in the United Arab Emirates? Well, the killers get away with it. It happened in 2010 when Israeli spies traveled to Dubai on Canadian, Australian and other passports to kill this man, Mahmoud al-Mabhouh, a leader of the Hamas military wing. Mabhouh's killing and the impunity with which Mossad was operating in the UAE signaled a remarkable shift in relations between once bitter enemies. The death of UAE founding father Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan in 2004 cleared the way for new leaders like Sandhurst-trained Mohammed bin Zayed to take the helm. Almost 10 million people live in the UAE, but only about 1 million of those are citizens. From 2004 onwards, the UAE went through rapid economic growth, with its GDP reaching $405 billion in 2019, slightly higher than Israel's $387 billion. A synagogue was built in Dubai in 2008 to serve the estimated 3,000 Jews living in the UAE. Abu Dhabi started to actively engage Israel beginning in 2006, after the US Congress threatened to block a ports deal by UAE-owned Dubai Ports World. Abu Dhabi then launched a public relations blitz to convince Washington that not only was the UAE a reliable ally, but it also shared Washington's strategic vision, including on Israel. Within this context, establishing a diplomatic channel to engage with Israel on US policy became a national priority for the United Arab Emirates. Israeli firm Zim Integrated Shipping Services, which had past dealings with Dubai ports, helped establish those early contacts. The United Arab Emirates ambassador in Washington, Yusuf Al-Otaiba, is a key link in the chain that connects Abu Dhabi to Tel Aviv. He led efforts alongside AIPAC to scrap the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. Otaiba also worked closely with Jared Kushner on the so-called deal of the century. The UAE focused on a new Palestinian leadership within Kushner's plan. Abu Dhabi wants this man, Mohammed Dahlan, to eventually replace Mahmoud Abbas as Palestinian president. Dahlan reached a deal with Hamas in Gaza to ease the Israeli-Egyptian blockade in 2017. He is said to be close to former Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman and the UAE's de facto ruler bin Zayed. With Israel by its side, the United Arab Emirates stands to qualify for a lot of perks from the US. To begin with, the UAE can now openly work with the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the most effective lobby in DC. It might help Abu Dhabi qualify for sophisticated military technology like the F-35 fighter jet and access to highly classified intelligence on Iran. In turn, the Israelis will benefit from lucrative business and partnership opportunities in the GCC. Israel has a right to have ties with any state it wants to, be it Turkey or UAE, Egypt or Pakistan. But diplomatic ties should not be a reward for Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. No matter how Abu Dhabi might spin it, by throwing the Palestinians under the bus, the UAE has in fact legitimized Israeli apartheid. The question now is, how long will Israel hold off on annexing the West Bank? And that's Decoded. Send me your comments and suggestions on Twitter at Ali_Mustafa.